Hey, what's up, Philippines? My name is Aaron Kaufman. I'm the Senior Community Manager and Marketing Producer of Santa Monica Studio on God of War. Jason McDonald, who's our combat designer, comes from the original God of War, and there's a lot of people on the team, Vince Napoli and Eric Williams, Bruno Velasquez, our principal animator. So these are all guys that have been with the franchise for a very long time. And to say we're directly inspired by MMA wouldn't be fair, but I would say it plays a big role in just making that violence, the melee, just feel more realistic. Boxing, MMA. There's probably the best thing to say is for this game, we discovered a new person to do the motion capture for the combat for Kratos specifically. It's a guy named Eric Jacobus, and we actually discovered him through YouTube because he was doing he just for fun was doing his own set of videos inspired by, I think it was Street Fighter or Tekken, where he would do these kind of videos recreating the moves. And Bruno, I think it was, discovered him on YouTube a number of years back and was like, dude, that guy needs to be our Kratos. He's Kratos. Like, look at his moves. Look at how he's flying and doing Superman punches. And so we have this great video coming out soon that's all called How to Train Like Kratos. And it's all about Eric. He's the one that is, Chris Judge is Kratos. Chris Judge is the actor who plays the voice of Kratos and does all the cinematics. But Eric Jacobus is the one, he's the stunt actor. All of Kratos' action moves are mirrored directly after him.
So Eric is the one fighting.
Yeah. So when you see all the combat moves, those are all custom mocapped by Eric. And, a lot of complexity in
So you
between.
guys just sent him a message on YouTube. Hey, can you do Kratos?
More or less, yeah. More or less, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it was like a
if I
dream.
was a guy imitating Street Fighter moves, and then the guys from God of War called me, man, I would be so hyped.
Oh, when you see this video, you'll see he was just like, dude, how the fuck could I say no to that? I mean, he's really, he's a really down to earth, cool guy. So, and I think. I don't know exactly if he does mocap in other games or movies or something, but I have to believe that doing this is going to open up his portfolio for a lot more work. So
that's awesome.
That's a cool thing that nobody's talked to me about yet. So I'm glad you guys are getting that. So cool.
Yeah. That should open things up for him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So we've played through quite a bit of the game, at least at the start.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned a while ago, it's still the same Kratos. We actually all thought from the beginning, it's like, oh man, is it like a reboot? Because it was a different set of gods. It was he even looked a bit different. And then the fact that it was in a numbered God of War, we were like saying, this might be that. I'm very interested in what you said about the shared mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all gods are present in all places of the world.
Yeah.
How did you guys deal with that? Because when I think about it, there's going to be conflicts. Because there will be some gods in certain, in the Greeks that will contradict some in Norse. So how are you doing the world building for that?
Well, I think we're, in a sense, making a clean break from Greek mythology, right? We're saying that the Greek gods still exist down there, but we're not going into a territory where we're going to start talking about, how one mythology could intersect another. Kratos went into isolation for a while after God of War 3, and it's an undetermined amount of time, and he lands in Scandinavia. And to be quite honest, he hasn't really interacted with any Norse gods or significant characters to speak of until he goes on this journey with Atreus. He has been kind of with Atreus's wife, or Atreus's mother, excuse me, for a set amount of time to bring Atreus into this world. How they met is a story that we're not telling right now. But she's an important character. Her ashes are very important, but her ashes are what brings Kratos and Atreus together. But what's important about that is, you might not have gotten to the moment yet, you find out that they were actually in this protective stave that the mother built.
Right.
And the stave was really meant to protect Atreus from the world and to hide them, right? So nobody in this very dangerous Norse world even knows that Kratos is here, because he's hidden. And you get a sense that maybe that's not entirely true, right? Because when you're interacting with the stranger, there's a moment there where it's like he seems to know more than Kratos even realizes. And so the first time they go beyond this protective stave is the first time for both of them that they're going to intersect with the conflicts that are happening in Norse mythology. When they meet Mimir, who's the knowledge keeper, he's pulled out of Norse mythology. Brock and Sindri, and that's why we went into that universe, right? Because there's this rich universe of drama and family that is kind of has a parallel to Greek, right? Greek had that rich universe as well. So I think kind of to round that out, the way we're building the world is by looking at the real Norse mythology and pulling the elements from it that make sense in our universe.
It's nice to see that there have been so many changes. I checked out the pause menu. Now you actually have stats, and the weapons are very unique. You have the skill trees are there. The entire approach, like I said, the unhinged camera. Was all of this planned? Because it's been a while since the last God of War game.
Yeah.
Was the delay for this God of War to appear because of all of that, or were you really working on a certain idea that you wanted to take away from the last one?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. About a month ago, Corey Barlog, who's our creative director, we were doing a big team update, among other things, and he kind of surprised the team by making this presentation where he presented the original PowerPoint about the game that he shared with the team when he pitched the game over 4 years ago. And as he's going through it, talking about narrative and combat and exploration and being able to upgrade your weapons and your armor and giving the player more choice and unhinging the camera and the one shot and going on this amazing journey, you're looking at it and you're saying, I feel like we're looking at ourselves in the mirror right now. We essentially did that. And his point in sharing that was simply that we basically set a scope and a design and a desire to fundamentally change these core things, and we did it. And that was intentional. That was the original plan 4 or 5 years ago. Now, like anything, things have changed along the way. The way the exploration system, the crafting, the way you upgrade armors, the minutia and the design of that has evolved considerably, and a lot of that has to do with user testing, right? We do extensive testing to find out what works, what doesn't. But the core principle of the system, explore, loot, craft, create, upgrade, the combat loop with throw your axe, go in for a little melee, defend with the shield, recall the axe, do it again, use Atreus, mix that in. There's a lot of core design loops there that were always from the onset. And then the story. The story has a lot of parallels, not only to all of us at the studio, but really to the studio as a whole. The studio, we have been growing up with this game for the last 15 years.
Right.
A lot of us have become parents over the time, myself included. We used to call the Greek days, Bruno, our principal animator, refers to it as our college years, right? We're kind of wild and crazy. We're making this outlandish action game. It's going to be amazing. And now we see a time where we're growing up. We need to make a more mature game. So everything you're seeing today is intentional. That was the original plan. There was never a delay. It was more just, this is the time we need. Let's keep taking the time to get it right. Yeah.
I mentioned this a while ago,
Yeah.
off cam, but the difficulty spike is there.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a different way of combat now. What were your inspirations for getting this kind of combat down? Because while I was playing it, I could still feel that adrenaline rush while you were playing, but at the same time I had to think now a little bit more than I was used to.
I think so. One thing is for sure is that we wanted to kind of kick the player's ass in the beginning of the game.
Right.
Intentionally, right? Like, we don't want you to be dying over and over again, but if you die one or two times because you're trying to play it like an old God of War game, or you're trying to rush your way in, we want you to be almost overwhelmed and feel that difficulty so that you learn that you have to use Atreus, you have to evade, you have to hit back on the D-pad. You can't just go rush in and mash, square, triangle, you know? It'll work a little bit, right? Don't get me wrong, it'll work a little bit. And it'll work at different times in the game, but at the end of the day, you're going to get your butt kicked. There's a moment where you encounter what we call a heavy draugr for the first time. And before you get to that heavy draugr, we've probably thrown maybe 5 or 6 light draugrs at you who are, they're more or less fodder. They're not the easiest to kill. But the heavy draugr, you can't just go in and hit R1. You actually have to parry. Then you have to use your R2, your heavy attack. You have to dodge and evade. You have to use Atreus. You might have to go into your rage mode a little bit. With the Revenant, the witch, like I said, you have to stun her 3 times by using Atreus before Kratos can go in and bop and take her out. So all these different enemies that you're going to encounter in the game, they will ramp up in difficulty. They will present new challenges for you. They don't always have like their tells like past God of War games. They're not as patternized per se. There's a lot more complex AI going on there. You can definitely read them eventually. It's less about reading. It's less about kind of reading their pattern and more about understanding. Do I need Atreus to help take this one down? Do I need to use ice? Do I need to do an R2 slam or a block or a melee? What works? And those are all things that we want you to discover.
Just to clear it up, it doesn't discount the past God of War games. This is kind of a continuation of what happened from the third main game.
Yeah, so even though we're not calling it God of War 4, we like to look at this as the next chapter in Kratos' being, right? He's still the immortal god. He's still the God of War. He still has the disease of being the God of War, of having rage built up inside of him. And
it's still called Spartan Rage.
Exactly. I mean,
that's a direct reference.
he is still the same Kratos that was trained in the Spartan army. But the reason that there's no number attached to this is really because we wanted any fan, whether you've played a God of War game or not, to feel like I don't need to have played the past God of War games to understand this one going forward. And it sets open a new era. It's really what it is. So.